What's up, y'all? All right, today is the 12th of February 2026. My name is Evan Strong, the founder of In the Image Clothing Company. In the Image Clothing Company, we are designed as human beings in the image of God. There's a universal human design. Okay, the skeletal system, bones, are only shaped the way that they are. This is episode 204 of In the Image Clothing Company podcast. This title is Where Clothing Sits, because I have talked about, as the founder, me, Evan Strong, okay, I'm the founder of In the Image Clothing Company, meaning what it means, which means the leader of this for life as well, okay? We discuss where clothing sits on the human being, and we do it often. I've done it since founding In the Image Clothing Company a little over 16 months ago from today's date, okay? But I'm going to get right into, at the very beginning of this episode, discussing where clothing sits, because anybody who's ever wondering, well, I heard In the Image Clothing Company thinks they know where clothing has to fit on my body, and whoever they are, they've never met me. Well, this is where you come, and let me just get right into this right at the very beginning, where clothing sits. And then after, I'll do discussions on what I do, but if you just get led to wondering, we say where clothing sits under In the Image Clothing Company, how does that apply to me, whoever you are? And what does that mean? Well, here you go. Let's start at the feet and we'll go up. We'll do it baseline, but we get in depth with things, free modifications in clothing. You don't have to purchase In the Image Clothing Company clothing, okay, to, quote, allow your body to work, unquote. But clothing is the only thing physically placed on us. Our human bodies are physically placed on Earth. There is a vertical pull to centered gravity, okay? The centered gravity pull that is vertical on Earth's surface, it's perpendicular with the horizontal surface of the Earth, okay? A 90-degree or a right angle gravity is vertical, Earth's surface is horizontal. So we start with the feet, okay? The feet need to be flat on the ground. In any brand of shoe, the term is zero drop, meaning no dropping from the heel to the toe or the toe to the heel. There's only one way the feet work, okay? We discussed this in depth. There's a lot of videos I could reference right now through this discussion on where clothing sits, okay, because we do a lot under the gift of video and always will under all four sides of In the Image Clothing Company. As of today's date, we're around a little over 1,000 videos, all four sides of In the Image Clothing Company combined. But the feet have to grip arches inward from the outsides of them with the shortest toes, with our different length toes. The pinky toes on the outsides are the shortest. They're also the neutral, straightforward. From there, we have internal rotation, bringing the toes in toward the center line of the body, or external rotation, bringing the toes away from the centered line of the body. But we need to evenly roll off the end of our 5 toes on each foot. There is a center line to the body. The sternum, the bone in the front, in the center where the ribs connect to. The bones then wrap around the body, those ribs, okay? They connect into the center line in the rear, the spine. A lot of little bones stacking called vertebrae that allow all the motion in the spine. We've got the trachea in the center of the neck, the nose, and then our jaw in the center. The jaw stabilizes the entire body, and it's a huge focus, okay, for dogs as well, on another one of our fourths In the Image Clothing Company, poodles. Anything that clothes the human being, by the way, is clothing. Anything. Glasses, jewelry, hats, pants, tops, shoes, socks, undergarments, anything, okay? Same with the dogs. Collars, leashes, harnesses on In the Image Clothing Company, poodles. So feet have to be flat on the ground. First off, when we discuss where clothing sits, shoes are clothing our feet, okay? So they have to be flat on the bottom, because our feet have to grip arches inward, opposing the center line when there's a foot on each side, and that's how we stay vertical on Earth's gravity. And there's bones, ligaments, tendons, muscles in the feet. They only work and are only shaped the way that they are. We do have different length toes, but also pointing the feet is the sole of the shoe, so we established that here, zero drop. Just like the surface of our planet Earth, it's horizontal underneath our feet. We go up hills or we go down hills, but right, it's horizontal, perpendicular with the vertical gravity pull of Earth. The vertical gravity pull of Earth meshes with the center line of our bodies, us leaning forward or back, us leaning left or right. Okay, musculature in the body contracts only, it pulls only. To the center line of the body is where all the muscles connect from either side of it. The human body only pulls. Okay, that's a video under our main side of In the Image Clothing Company where we discuss the anatomy of the human body in depth. We discuss where clothing sits, free modifications in any design of clothing to allow the body to work. Also standing and sitting, sleeping, walking, breathing, hydration, just living our lives, modifying the way we approach life to allow our bodies to work, because there's only one way they do, okay? And I'll get into that if you think that's an opinion or a claim. No, we've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours of video as of today's date, okay? Me discussing this so thoroughly, there's no possible dispute to what we discuss under In the Image Clothing Company, because they're not our decisions. I didn't design my body and you didn't design yours. There's only one way they work, okay? Because we've got these mathematical angles. The human body is just mechanics is a video as well under the main site of In the Image Clothing Company. Okay. Physics, these are things we discuss because this is how the body is. It's a mechanical machine placed onto this rock in space that is our Earth. There's only one way these things happen. They're not our decisions because they always have happened before we were even here. Okay. Truth is what we focus on under In the Image Clothing Company because it's the only thing that actually exists. We can have opinions on truth, but we have to have something there already to have an opinion on. We can have beliefs about where we came from, but we have to first be here to have a belief, and so our beliefs can't decide where we came from. Okay, truth is truth. It's not my choice. I don't get to decide it. I don't get to take credit for it as the founder of In the Image Clothing Company, or just as Evan Strong in my life. Okay, no human being does. We're designed in the image of God, in the image of Jesus Christ. Here's your clothing company. Okay, In the Image Clothing Company, our 5-word name. So, starting at the feet, the bottom of the feet, that's the surface of the earth. Okay, 0 drop, determine any brand of shoe. But the top of the feet is half their function. We point the toes from their horizontal surface of earth position, or the term 0 drop in any brand of shoe. That's also the neutral position of the ankle, where we point the toes from there, which is plantar flexion, and that's determined by the bottom of the feet, or the sole of the shoe, or the surface of the earth, okay, whatever is underneath our feet. But we lift our feet up as well, and that's dorsiflexion, which is half of their function from pointing them, okay? Lifting the shoes really has just about nothing to do with the bottom of the shoes. Lifting the feet have just about nothing to do with the bottom of the feet. So the top of the feet being half of their function from their neutral, well, that's determined by something, and what it's determined by is the ropes we weave across the top of our feet, or just the shape of the upper or the top of the shoe we wear. So we have In the Image Clothing Company's shoelace technique. Not our opinions, not our ownership. We don't own it, okay? It's just a weave of a rope, but that is all we're doing, is weaving ropes across the top of our feet, okay? There's only one way the top of the feet are shaped. The bones, ligaments, tendons, and muscles in the feet that only work how they do, the bones only being shaped the way that they are in the human body, only being the length that they are in the human body, connecting to each other directly through ligaments, and then having a thin layer of cartilage between them to not wear them out. There's only one way bones mesh, and they'll never do anything else because we didn't design the shape of them, and they just grow to be what they are. Muscles. The only reason for muscles is to move the bones, and muscles connect to bones through tendons, and then we can move those bones. But the muscles only pull. We can pull muscles to close a hinge joint, for example, like the elbow, but then we also pull muscles on the back side of the hinge joint to extend the elbow, okay? Opposing muscles. We pull to close, we pull to open, we pull to push the foot down, but we pull to pull the foot up. You know, we don't ever actually push as human beings. Muscle fibers fire, they get closer together. Muscles only contract, okay? So stretch is very damaging. We discuss it, there's no opinion, okay? It's not my information, meaning it's not my choice, okay? So we've got the bottom of the feet, 0 drop, determine any brand of shoe, just flat, like the surface of the earth. We've got the top of the feet. If there's ropes there, we call them shoelaces often, okay? In the Image Clothing Company's shoelace technique, found wherever you find us. It's an episode title of In the Image Clothing Company Podcast because it's that important. Okay, In the Image Clothing Company's shoelace technique. Then we've got socks, okay? Socks, well, the importance of the proper height socks. A video under the main site of In the Image Clothing Company. Socks can't alter the ankle joint right above the foot, but they can't alter the calf muscle on the rear of the lower leg right below the knee. So that's the proper height sock, is somewhere above the ankle joint but below that muscle on the rear of the lower leg called the calf muscle, okay? Somewhere in there where just the top of the material of the sock isn't right against something that's having a function, okay? I mean, there's still muscle spanning the leg there, but that's the proper height of socks. Not my opinion, but then the socks just aren't in the way of things, okay? Not altering the ankle joint and not altering the calf muscle's contraction, okay? Traveling up, well, basically the same area, pant cuffs. Pant cuffs have to be at the top of off the top of the feet. Pant cuffs have to be off the top of the feet. We have to be able to lift our feet, dorsiflexion. We have to be able to grip those arches. And the height of a gripped arch comes when that pinky toe is allowed to be neutral, straightforward, and all the musculature is allowed to pull to cause the shape of the arch to rise without the top of the foot hitting the pant cuff. Or the arch will collapse just to try to get away from the pant cuff that's in its way. Okay, now if we have shorts, shorts just need to be off the knees. Okay, long pants off the ankles, shorts off the knees. They're just joints. You put something in the way of this thing with motion and it can't have motion. There's just something in its way. Okay, so then the body will try to compensate in places and parts of it. But the human body can only ever work activated as a whole. Everything's there with a role to play. It's all got its own individualistic function. So things can't make up for other things when they just do a completely different thing. Okay? The human body either works all together or it really struggles. Now, you can have an amputation, a deformity, a birth defect, a major surgery, anything that sets your body apart a little bit or quite a bit from what, though, right? The universal human design. Okay? The amount of bones and ligaments and tendons and muscles and organs and the functioning of them and how they operate, the measurable degrees of rotations and hinges and levers in the body. Measuring truth is episode 200 of In the Image Clothing Company podcast. There's no opinion to truth. You can measure it. It never changes. Okay, things that are true never changed because they never began. Another name for God, the designer of the human being in his image, is the truth. Okay. There's an episode title of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, which is Jesus Christ is God. So don't believe me, as I say, Evan Strong. Don't believe in the Image Clothing Company, which I am the founder of. Don't believe any of our team members, including our poodles, like Dante here, my standard poodle. Okay, because truth is truth, even if you don't believe it. Truth remains, even if nobody speaks about it or knows about it. We only find out about things that have been going on through like the scientific method even, right? That's truth we're trying to get to through science. But God is the creator of all this, so he knows all of it already. We can find out truth, but we don't get to decide truth or change truth as human beings, okay? So, yeah. Traveling up, okay? Pant waistlines. The waistline of our pants, well, it's going around our hips, around our pelvis, which is the hip structure, just that big structure of bone there in the center of our body where we hinge forward. Okay. There's a neutral to the pelvis, and it's the same as the neutral to the feet. The bottom of the feet, the neutral of those from lifting up, which is dorsiflexion, or pointing down, which is plantar flexion, is the horizontal angle of the surface of the earth, which is perpendicular with the vertical pull of Earth's gravity. So that's our feet's neutral, and we travel straight up from there, and that's our hips neutral. Okay, you know why? It's no opinion of mine. But the body has opposing bends. The ankles bend backward. The knees above the ankles bend forward. The hips above the knees bend backward. The lower back above the hips bends forward. The mid back above the low back bends backward, and then the upper back, which is really the neck, okay, the cervical spine, it bends forward. So we just have even opposing bends, mathematical measurable degrees of bending that you have to stay vertical as a human being on Earth's vertical gravity pull, perpendicular with the horizontal surface of our planet. It's impossible to train posture. It always has been. As I say, it's impossible to train the human being to get it to do anything. How could you? Muscles are only shaped the way that they are. Bones are only shaped the way that they are. Bones connect directly to each other. Muscles connect to bones. It'll only ever do what it does But what we really do is get into chronic patterning. Scar tissue builds up, bone spurs build up. Reshaping Bones is an episode. Well, it's not an episode, okay? It's a video, though, under the main side of In the Image Clothing Company, and we can get our bodies back to normal. There is a normal. Even with amputations, well, you can have a prosthetic limb on one side to balance out your body on Earth's centered gravity pole. Dante was scratching himself. Okay, but there is a normal. There's a vertical gravity pole. There's two sides to the body with a center line in between. You can be different from the normal, and that's fine. We're all different where we are, but we have to do all we can to get back to the universal human design, because there's a universal human design, okay? In our own individualistic situations, that's the goal, and we can get out of patterning. That's really what we do under In the Image Clothing Company's main side. We give a lot of information on just discussing the anatomy of the human body, okay? So, yeah. The hips have a neutral. It's the same as the feet's neutral, okay? Because the hips can tuck underneath us, which is posterior with their rotations, which excessively straightens our body. We've got videos under the main side of In the Image Clothing Company titled The Natural Curve in the Spine and The Natural Bend in the Knee. Those are two videos. Because there's a natural slight bend in the body to be slightly into the ranges of our motion that our bodies have in each of their joints, hinges, and rotations, okay? And we need to be slightly bent into those because that's how the body stabilizes, is opposing muscles, okay? We're pulling from one side and from the other side of the center position or the neutral position between the two, and we stabilize right in the middle, okay? Like standing. You either lean left or you lean right, but you have to be right in the middle to stay vertical. You either lean forward or lean back, but you need to be right in the middle to stay vertical. This is the same with the wrist and the elbow and the shoulder and the whole body, okay? We discussed the whole body. Well, the thing with the elbow is it's just a hinge joint between the wrist and the shoulder. Like the knee is a hinge joint between the ankles and the hips. This is what I mean. There's only one way the human body could ever work. And then the spine just connects the shoulders and hips. The hand is the shoulder, the feet are the hips, the jaw is the shoulder, the ears are the jaw. We just discussed it so thoroughly, okay? There's no opinion. We really know what we're talking about here, so don't believe us, okay? But we just want our hips to be even. From tucking underneath us, our hips can also bend away from us or rotate away from us. That's anterior with the rotations, but that's the same direction we're just bending if we bend over forward at the hips, and that's an excessive bend when we want to stay standing vertical on Earth's gravity's pull. So there's a neutral right between, which meshes with the bottom of the feet and the surface of our Earth, and zero drop, the term in any brand of shoe, okay? Travel up from the feet, there's the hips. How we keep the hips neutral, though, is by having our pant waistline slightly higher in the front than the rear. And I mean just very, very slightly. If we could have them be exactly horizontal always, then there you go. But the thing is, when we bend forward, which our hands are in front of us, our eyes are in front of us, our hips bend forward much more than they could bend backward, right? That's just how it works. We hinge at the hips. And if that happens, that causes our pant waistline to just go lower in the front than the rear. And gravity affects our clothing placed on us as much as it affects our bodies that it's placed onto. Okay. So there's only one way these things work, and they're not my decisions. Okay. It's always been the same. And there you go. Okay. Pants need to be above our hip bones, but below our lowest ribs. That's what's called our natural waist, where our elbows sit. Okay. The elbow is just the other end from the shoulder, connected to each other through the upper arm bone called the humerus, and they go the exact same location each one goes, okay? The elbow and the shoulder. We pivot on this collarbone, either up and in or down and out. It's just the shape and angles of the bones. We get into it in depth, but just to really focus on where clothing sits here, so you can get right to this if you get reference to where clothing sits under In the Image Clothing Company. This is for everybody who has one or everyone who has a body. It's a universal human design, okay? You can be slightly different, right? As I say, as it is, regardless of what I say, we're different where we are. But It does take the entire body to breathe through stabilization, okay? Everything's there. We're expanding and contracting our rib cage in 360 degrees if it's not altered by something in its way, clothing it, okay? Clothing, okay? So, yeah, the body just has to work the only way it can. It's not my choice, not my opinion. I don't have some kind of fashion advice on where your clothing should sit. No, and it'll never change either. It's never started. God had to first look like us to design us in his image. God is the same yesterday, today, and forever, unchanging, eternal, perfect being, Jesus Christ, right? God. So, don't believe me, but we've got the context to explain what we're discussing. You don't have to believe it. That's the point. Truth is truth. They're not my decisions. Where clothing sits, okay? It's been the same since the founding of In the Image Clothing Company, by the way, where we discuss where clothing sits because it won't ever change. Okay, little things like tongue tabs in shoes and collar seams, right? In the Image Clothing Company's dreaded collar seam modification. Rotations in seams. In the Image Clothing Company's rotated seam modification. We give a lot of free modifications, okay? By the way, those two are episodes of In the Image Clothing Company podcast as well, okay? Modifying collar seams, modifying rotated seams when robots stitch our clothing and rotate them, okay, as they go down the conveyor belt, and we've got seams going the same direction on both sides or opposite directions on both sides, but we've got gravity just pulling us straight down. Okay, so seams need to be even in clothing. So that's a point where clothing sits. Let me give some context on that right here as well. Yeah, the side seams need to be right at the sides of our hip bones of our pants. Side seams of our tops, ideally we don't have side seams against our rib cage because our rib cage needs to actually expand and contract. The rib bones are some bones in the body that actually do move. They bend. They need to come out and go in, and if they touch against a seam right against the sides of them, we can't get a full breath because there's just something in the way. But side seams in clothing, right? Maybe you have an undershirt on with no side seams. That's the ideal. But then side seams on top and like a button-up t-shirt, button-up long-sleeve shirt, something like this, or whatever it is. Yeah, just even seams right at the very sides of our bodies because there's sides to our bodies, right? Just straight down from the shoulder is the fingertips with Earth's gravity when we hang our arms down, okay? It's just how it works. If our feet are flat on the ground, okay? We really get into it. There's no opinion to this, and it's never started. It'll never end. Because clothing designs can change, and clothing can be made from different materials, although the only way you can make things unnatural is by taking natural materials from the earth and making them unnatural. Un has to come from something that once was something else. Everything's always only natural. There's no opinion to natural. The goal is natural on all four sides of In the Image Clothing Company. Unnatural doesn't exist until you alter natural things to be unnatural. Matter cannot be created or destroyed, and so where do we get it from if it's not already just natural things on the earth? Okay, there's only truth to life, as we say. The gospel of Jesus Christ is the truth of all things. It's no opinion. It's just an explanation to life. Life's been here before we got here. It only is what it is, okay? We don't get to decide it and have it matter. We don't get to have opinions on it, have them matter. We don't get to have beliefs and have them change what things are. No one, myself included, right? So, anyway, yeah, pants at our natural waist and slightly higher in the front, then allow our bodies to move. Our core can stay activated. The human being's core is just like the core of an apple, as I say, as it is. It's where the seeds are in the apple. The core, the center part, that's where everything stems out from. Okay, that's where the stem of the apple is. Words only mean what they mean. Things are literal, okay? That's how we have life at all, because it exists. Truth is truth, okay? The center part of the human being stabilizes the rest of it. And if it deactivates, the rest of the body is not supported by the center. The core of the human being would never deactivate unless something caused it to. God designed the human being to work. The way that animals don't exercise or stretch or work out, they just work. Right? We place clothing on our bodies, though, and if it's not fitting our bodies properly, staying centered with the center line of our bodies, fitting correct where the joints of our bodies are at the joints of the material of clothing, or the seams of our body parts, if you will, with the seams of material of our clothing meshing in the same location, then our bodies will be damaged. That's where patterning gets built up, okay? Oversized clothing, imbalances of any kind in clothing, and there's many in modern clothing design shipped across the entire earth, the ways that it couldn't happen in the past because we have technology to do it like that now, okay? Ropes introduced to the body, drawstrings, ropes around the waist. And we discussed shoelacing, okay? Shoelaces are just ropes. But if we tie one side of a rope over the other side of a rope and put it on the body, when the body just has one centered or neutral position to all of its functioning and then motion on either side of that, the body will be damaged. Trying to work around these things for years or decades or an entire lifetime until addressed. Okay. That's where it comes in. Reshaping bones. Only back to the only way they can work, right? Bones only track in line, like the hand. Your fingers all have to line up for all the bones that are in there to mesh together to close a fist. You put your wrist down, dropped, and everything's on an angle. You lift your wrist up higher than neutral, and everything's on an angle. There's only one neutral position where the bones can just move without wearing each other out. There's only one way the human body could ever work. There is only one way the human body could ever work. Okay, that's why you keep doing workouts if you do. Keep doing stretching routines if you do, and whatever else it could be. You'll never get enough of what's not for you. You can't get your body to do anything else besides what it does. Bones just connect directly to each other. You're not going to cause them to be another shape besides how they're supposed to be, you know. Okay, seen with context, we give it. Under In the Image Clothing Company. So, anyway, we bend side to side at the natural waist, which is the spine. It's the lower third of the spine, the lumbar spine. There's no bones there at that part of the body, the natural waist, until you get to the center line where the spine is. So that's how we bend side to side. That's where our pant waistline has to be for every human ever. Okay? Yeah, you can have a very, very, very uniquely deformed body. That's one thing. Okay, that's one thing. I just want to make it very clear. I'm not making like a blanket statement. This is just the truth of physics, mechanics, mathematics, and just, Earth's gravity. Okay, bones just being immovable sticks by themselves unless they connect to another bone. And then they can move where they connect to each other. Okay, there's only one way it happens. It's always been the exact same. Always will as well. The human body. Okay, so if we're tying a rope around our waist, though, a drawstring, if you will, we just can't put one side over the other when there's a center line to the body meshing with Earth's center of gravity. So what we show is the slipped lap knot. It's LAPP. Yeah, find it wherever you find it, or under In the Image Clothing Company when we just show how to tie a drawstring to have a horizontal knot. There you go. You can use any knot, sure. If it really, doesn't alter your body, but that's the one that I know doesn't, because that's the one I've been using for about 2 years, give or take, from this point back. Okay, so anyway, tops need to be waisted. Okay, the tops that we wear, like on our torso, like t-shirts, okay, for example, as what a top is, shirts, okay, our tops. Anything like this, though, on top of our bodies like that, okay, yeah, they need to be waisted. The tail end or the bottom end of our tops, check that out, the bottom end of our tops, it needs to stop where our hips hinge, or else it's in the way of where our hips hinge. We bend at the hips, at the pelvis, right? We don't want the rear of our shirt tail getting caught on our glutes, okay, behind our bodies. And we don't want the front of our shirt tail to just be down lower than where our hips are hinging, or they're just lower than where our hips are hinging. Okay, let's say you sit down and you've got now you'll just have material bunching up at the shirt tail because it's just longer than where your hips are bending. It's just in your way, and your body is trying to work around it. It damages your body. There's no opinion. It's just something physically in the way. Okay. So, tops, they have seams, and we need to have seams at the edges of our shoulders. There's design of clothing that you can design, Okay, there's ways to design clothing with no edge seams at the tops, at the edges of our shoulders, but the edges of our shoulders are three bones coming together. Okay, the collarbone or clavicle, the shoulder blade or scapula, and then the upper arm bone or humerus. These are three bones coming directly together, becoming the shoulder. And so that's a good way to see joints of body parts meeting joints of material. Okay, the edge seams of our tops just need to be as close as we can get to just where the bones are meeting at the edge of the shoulder, or else you're just having to try to work around something physically placed on you that's in your way, that's being affected by gravity just as much as your body is. Okay, anything clothing your body. It's literal wording. That's where the word comes from. Words are literal. They only mean what they mean. That's how we have languages. Okay, good boy, Dundee. So the top seams of our shoulders, like across the top of our shoulders, they need to sit evenly behind the peak of our shoulders, because our shoulders only ever actually work behind our head. That's just where the muscles supporting the shoulders are. The sternocleidomastoid comes up and connects behind the ear. The upper trapezius comes and connects to the very base of the rear of the skull. Okay, we get in depth with it. I could reference a lot of videos like I said earlier that go along with this, right? Discussing a lot of things with that, but it's just mechanics. There's only one way the bones connect to each other, and then muscles only pull directly in line where they're connected to bones on either end. Okay, so the thing is, we've got seams in our collars where we do, okay? Keeping collars centered, the importance of snug collars, In the Image Clothing Company's dreaded collar seam modification. These are things we discuss under In the Image Clothing Company. There are videos on In the Image Clothing Company's main side. Same with dogs, okay? For this is a good point. Dog collars need to be centered and snug. We've just got kind of like what's happening around the waist. I've said it like this before, there's a natural waist, if you will, of the neck, where this like bend is in the neck from, you know, like the outside of the edge of the shoulder, coming straight into the center line of the neck, and then just coming straight up to the tip of the head, if you will. Like where that angle is of what it really is the upper trapezius muscle. If you could picture something just sitting there nicely and not moving around on your neck, evenly centered around the circumference or circular nature of your neck. That's how our collars have to be. We don't want them moving around because that will just cause muscles on one side to activate more than the other, or muscles on the other side to activate more than this side. And there's just a center line to the neck, and it's bone. It's the spine, okay, where the muscles are connecting into. Okay. There's only one way this stuff can happen. Placing anything onto God's design of the human being, the only end is to allow God's design of the human being to work. No one could take credit for designing their body without being delusional. Okay, so we just have to learn how it works, because it works before we get to have a even opinion on it or understanding of it, of how it works. We didn't design it. Okay, we can't decide how it works. We can't put clothing onto it that doesn't sit on it the way that it works. Okay, so where clothing sits, that's what I'm saying. It's no possible opinion. It's also no possible dispute if you can see what's going on. It's not my choice, no one's choice, but the designer of the human being, which is none of us. Okay, God, though, Jesus the Christ. So yeah, the top seams need to sit evenly behind the peak of our shoulders, because since our shoulders only ever work behind our head, and there's so much context on that, okay, the shoulder blades, one of the three bones of the shoulders, only sit behind the rib cage. They will never come crashing through the rib cage and break the bones of the ribs to come in front of the body. No, okay. The muscles supporting the shoulders vertically connect behind the ears, which the ears are the center front to back from the head, or of the head. Okay, so the shoulders only ever possibly mechanically work behind the head, but again, your feet have to be flat on the ground. You put a heel under your foot on a man-made shoe design, and you just lean your entire body forward unless you change the natural bend in the knee, the natural curve in the spine. But vertical, you know, the vertical pole of, or center of gravity never changes. So no, you can't do those things. Okay, there's no opinion. to where clothing sits. For the human being, it's always been the same since before there ever could have possibly been something called In the Image Clothing Company, founded by Evan Strong. Okay, no, nothing to do with me, but it is true, okay, that there's only one way clothing can sit on our bodies without altering them, okay? But if we have seams in our collars of our tops, if we have rotated seams down the sides of our tops, the top seams of our shoulders probably won't be sitting very evenly on top of our shoulders, okay? Again, evenly behind the peak bone of the shoulder, the very top of this end of the collarbone, okay, where it meets the other two bones of the shoulder. That's the peak of the shoulders. That's the highest point of the shoulder from Earth's surface up, okay? So, there you go, okay? Now, we've got things, though, that really make a big difference, and it's a big deal. It's a big thing to focus on. Like I said, pant cuffs, is if it's long pants or shorts. Well, sleeve cuffs, if they're short sleeves or long sleeves. Short sleeves on tops need to be off the elbow joint, so we don't alter the elbow joint. And we discussed that thoroughly because there's rotations in the forearm. The radius and ulna, two bones in the forearm, come up and meet the humerus, which is the upper arm bone, and that's our elbow. The rotations will be altered, and the shoulder's height will be altered just to try to work around a too long, short sleeve, okay? So short sleeves off the elbow joint, and then long sleeves off the wrist joint, because there's a lot of motion in the wrist, and the neutral wrist correlates with the neutral ankle, like the neutral pinky toes correlate with the neutral pinky fingers. Straight out from the outside of the forearm is the pinky finger, and straight out from the outside of the lower leg forward is the pinky toe, okay? And then we've got internal rotation versus external rotation from there. In the lower legs, in the forearms, and then we lock the whole leg out from the knee, and it goes from the foot to the hip, as well as locking the hand out from the shoulder at the elbow, and then it goes from the hand to the shoulder. So I don't want to give too much anatomy explanation here because we give it where we do, but I want to give enough context to where you can tell from just this one episode alone. If you're wondering how we know where your clothing should sit under In the Image Clothing Company, well, we do. It's mechanics. It's the human being's design of God. Okay, God's design of the human being. There you go. And it is the same for every body who has one. It's literal wording. Again, words only mean what words mean. Every body. That's why it's said that way. Okay, there's only definitions to words, or there's no words that could mean anything. Words only mean what they mean is what I'm saying. Okay, there you go. It's not my choice. Never could possibly be something I could take credit for, at all, with allowing the body to work under In the Image Clothing Company. That's our slogan on our main side. Well, that's what we do. I couldn't take credit for it. I didn't design it. I didn't choose what it means to allow the body to work. There's only one way it works, though, because it's not our design. Okay. Keeping color centered, though, the shoulder is the jaw. The jaw is the shoulder. Look at this. Okay. Musculature and tendons coming down from the jawbone, the lower jawbone called the mandible, and connecting right to the very edge of the shoulder. Okay, there's a lot of muscles in the body, stabilizing, little muscles, but it only does what it does, the human being. Okay, so there you go with short sleeves and long sleeves, just off the joints, okay? Short sleeves off the elbows, long sleeves off the wrists, shorts off the knees when it comes to pants, and long pants off the ankles, okay? There you go. Now we get really in depth with it, okay? Buttons, zippers, tags and clothing. Well, tags and clothing only exist as of tens of years back from today's date, the 12th of February, 2026. And it's just like having a leaf in your clothing. That's how I describe it, because the leaves are natural, okay? If we put something between our clothing and our body, that the item of what we call clothing is clothing, okay? That's why we call it clothing. It's clothing our bodies. Again, only literal words here. If we're discussing truth, which is all that exists. Yeah, ever, okay? Not any of our choices. Truth? No, not our choices, okay? Yeah, it's like putting a leaf between your shirt and your body, or your pants and your body, or your shoe tongue, if you will, and your body, like the top of your foot, okay? There's something just in the way. It's causing a physical gap, it's just damaging. It's causing musculature to try to do what it can to deactivate, to just move out of the way. There's only one position of the human being, as we've been discussing here. That's what the body's about, is its skeletal frame. All the musculature does is support the skeletal frame of the human being, and it only has one position it works in. It's a neutral, okay? Up or down or in or out, leaning forward, leaning back, leaning left, leaning right. From where? Well, the center, or the neutral. Again, the vertical gravity pull of Earth. The horizontal surface of Earth, there's no possible opinion. It's mathematics, okay? Yeah, same with where the shoulders sit, same with the angle of the pelvis and the angle of the wrist, the angle of the ankles, okay? Always stop lacing at ankle flexion. Where the ankle flexes, we have to stop our shoelaces, okay? But yeah, we get talking about a lot of really, really, really little things because you're either placing something on your body or you're not. There's only one way your body works, okay? And I can tell you that because we're all the same. If you don't want to believe that, well, you do want to believe that when you have a problem and you go to a doctor. They need to know how your body works because they practice on other bodies. Somebody else's body, it's literal wording, okay? There's only truth to life. I do not get to decide it. Neither do you. Jesus Christ is the truth. If you got a problem with us, as in the Image Clothing Company, stick around, okay? Deeper context brings deeper understandings. We've got extremely deep context, always doing so much under the gift of video, as I say. That's a huge part of what we always are, have been, and will be. And we have very long videos, at least, up until today's date. That's how they've been. So, context, okay? There you go. Context over content is an episode title of In the Image Clothing Company podcast because that's the focus. Things you don't have to believe because even if you don't believe them, they're still what they are. Okay, truth is that. And it exists always and never changes. So, yeah, there's a lot of things we can discuss in clothing. The thing with tags is you have to remove them. Otherwise, you just have something physically between your clothing and you, If you have a shirt with a tag in it, and then you have a shirt without a tag in it, take that shirt without a tag and just put a leaf between your clothing and you, where the tag might be. It's the same thing, okay? Same size and shape leaf, like from a tree, okay? It's as real as it is. As I say, it's as obvious as it is once you see it. It's as real as it gets. These are phrases I say under In the Image Clothing Company because these things are eternal, meaning forever, always the same. That's what I mean by no matter what clothing designs look like, there's still only one position, the bones of the body mesh, and the muscles always still only ever pull together, okay? So don't stretch your body and don't have stretch in clothing. It only exists as of tens of years back from today's date, okay? Like tags in clothing, and that's a lot of reason why tags are in clothing is because these unnatural, again, something that can only come after natural is unnatural. Materials, okay, synthetic, artificial, things that our clothing are made out of, and in food as well, and just in things we interact with in life, with allowing the body to work under In the Image Clothing Company. It's much more than just clothing, okay? But, stretch, it goes the opposite direction of the only way muscles can possibly function. And the way the body works is by muscles functioning. That's synonymous with firing or activating, contracting, or pulling. That's all muscles do, and directly in line from where they connect to bones at their endpoints, called insertions, which are tendons, okay? There's only one way this happens. It's no opinion. I'm going to be doing this for the rest of my life, and so that's why this episode's great. Even though we talk about where clothing sits, just where we do, and in most, definitely the majority of the, as of this one, 204 episodes of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, as of today's date, right? We date mark things for a reason, okay? Record keeping, it's just documentations, really. But yeah, the 12th of February, 2026, yeah, most all of the episodes of In the Image Clothing Company podcast before now have mentioned, well, by me, Evan Strong, the founder of In the Image Clothing Company, where clothing sits. But this one, I wanted to just be such a clear explanation. So if you've got a question on it, because that's what we discuss under the main side and the main reason physically for In the Image Clothing Company is to show people where clothing sits on their bodies. Okay, so this is where you can come with a pretty darn good, thorough explanation, and then a lot of other deeper context given where it is under any four sides of In the Image Clothing Company that we do that, okay? But this, we just got right into it at the beginning, so here you go, okay? Because, yeah, we talk about a lot of things, a lot of free modifications, but there you go. We've got shoes in this video. Well, it's also audio only, okay? It's a podcast, In the Image Clothing Company podcast, episode 204 here. Where Clothing Sits is the title, so you know, okay? Like I just said, shoes. We did socks, pants, the same for undergarments as pants. When it comes to the waistband angle, no stretch, no unnatural materials in them. The human body is only natural, you know? We're only what we eat. That's how you grow. You eat unnatural things and your body can't extract nutrients from them, but it still has to process them through it, and that takes energy without compensation from having to use the energy from, you know, being given nutrients. It's not happening. It's only damaging to eat unnatural things. The human body is only natural. As it says in the Holy Bible, we're pulled from the clay. You don't have to believe in anything. It's literal. You eat animals that ate plants, or you eat plants that grew from the dirt. It's all coming from the earth. Matter cannot be created or destroyed. These are universal laws. You don't have to be religious or believe in anything. Okay, truth is truth. Whether you're coming at it through science, which is just human beings trying to understand things that are already there, or whether we just go to God who designed the things that are already there. You know, truth is truth, no matter how you're approaching it. It never changes. God, okay, Jesus Christ is the truth. So, yeah, okay, traveling up, tops is everything that's a top. A shirt, coat, jacket, hoodie, cardigan, anything, right? We could mention anything that's a top. It's just the same things, right? The shoulders, the elbows, the wrists, they just can't be altered. The rib cage as well, you know, the jaw, which is the shoulder. The jaw stabilizing the entire body is a huge focus. Even if you don't want to, you have to, because it's in the center line of your body and it's stabilizing your whole body. The jaw is speaking, eating, like I just said, stabilization of the entire body, and also breathing. And then everything else you could just say the jaw does. It's a huge, huge focus. Okay, so not altering the ears because they're directly behind the jawbone. Okay, that lower jawbone, the mandible. Keeping color centered. You know, eating and drinking with your non-dominant hand, both hands, to keep the jaw centered. Lots of things we discussed with the jaw, but clothing will directly affect it, because if clothing's pulling on your shoulders, it's pulling on your jaw. If your jaw's not centered, well, workouts don't help the jaw. You know, a video that at least was at one point under the main side of In the Image Clothing Company, but it's just the case, okay? The jaw's got to be in the center, meshing with Earth's center of gravity, meshing with the other center parts of the body below the jaw, or above it as well, like the nose. We're breathing through the nostrils. There's two of them, one on each side opposing the center, like feet on each side of the body opposing the center, hands on each side of the body opposing the center, lungs on each side of the body opposing the center, and all the things we could say. Clothing has to fit, or it's pulling your body out of its center line because it's just on your body, and Earth's gravity is just always centered. Okay. Earth's surface is always horizontal. You can go up a hill or down a hill, but you can't say you're going up a hill unless you're only going up a hill from a neutral position, which is horizontal. You can't go down a hill unless you're going down from a horizontal centered neutral position. And it's the bottom of the feet, it's neutral as well, okay, like we said. So anyway, there you go. I mean, that's baseline clothing. Okay, we talk about everything we talk about, and we will only deepen. That's our focus. That's our goal. Okay, there's an episode title of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, which is I'm in this for life. Okay, spoken by me, Evan Strong, the founder of In the Image Clothing Company. Yeah, I'm here to do this, to deepen it. We do what we do. There's 4 distinct sides to In the Image Clothing Company. When it comes to dog collars, leashes, harnesses, slip leads, bandanas, anything placed onto dogs. Well, In the Image Clothing Company Poodles is another one of our 4s. We specialize in purebred standard poodles. But we give information on letting dogs stay natural. The same thing as allowing the body to work here on In The Image Clothing Company's main side. That applies to all dogs and any animals across the earth that the information would apply to as well, right? Living in this unnatural, modern, man-made world placed onto God's natural earth, the human body only being natural or being poisoned, truly, by unnatural things. There's no opinion to these things, and they're not my choices, okay? Anyone's either. They're not anyone's choices, but they're God. They're truth. They're unchanging and undisputed, okay? You just have to get down to it, because you can, okay, let me say it very clear, because you can measure truth. You can measure truth, okay? So there you go. That's where clothing sits. There's your explanation. There's a little bit of an explanation on In The Image Clothing Company Poodles, but we do a lot there. There's In The Image Clothing Company Music. We do a lot there. Measuring truth, okay, showing the sizing and setup of guitar to not alter the body's neutral wrist, and rounding in the hands that correlates with the rounded arches in the feet. And one will affect the other. The feet will affect the hands will affect the feet if they're altered. Okay, we need fingernails and toenails. That's why they're there, to fully back and support the fingers and toes all the way to the very tips, and cut relatively flat because the bones only track in line. So the nails supporting the tips of them, if we can keep the finger tips neutral and the toe tips neutral, then we'll have a neutral rounded open palm, and we'll have a neutral foot arch. Traveling up, we'll have a neutral wrist and a neutral ankle, and then traveling up from there, from the extremities, the feet and the hands, okay, to the shoulders and hips. So there's only one way the human body could ever work. It sounds crazy to some. I know some people have gone to school for longer than I've been alive, maybe, or been doing things for longer than I've been alive. Currently, I'm 26 years old as of today's date, the 12th of February, 2026. Maybe they're training the human body to try to get it to do something. It's impossible, though. Mathematically, mechanically, physically, it's impossible. Okay, the human body has a normal. It always goes back to its only normal once you stop trying to get it to do something else. Wow, Dante, good stretch, buddy. The dogs stretch, but it's like how we can stretch. Like, we wake up in the morning and just go into the full range of motion in our bodies if we were not extended into it throughout the night. But I mean, like, holding stretches to try to elongate muscles. Well, they're only connected to bones. Bones are the only the length that they are. You're never going to get muscles longer. There's opposing muscles to every function. They have to be evenly pulling on either side to stabilize. Yeah, don't stretch your body. There's no opinion. No opinion. Under In The Image Clothing Company, I mean, if we make a mistake in what we're saying, or we say something that's opinionated at some point, we're just as human as anyone else, but what I mean is our baseline understanding of it, it truly is and always has been impossible to train the human body to get it to do something. That's there's no opinion to that. It's mathematics. It's not some far-fetched thing like pay us and we'll explain it to you. I'm going to explain enough in this episode of In The Image Clothing Company Podcast for you to understand it. No opinion, okay? So I don't care who says what. Physical therapists, personal trainers, chiropractors, sports coaches, right? I say these people, orthopedic people. I don't care who you are, massage therapists. I mean, I could label all the people in that kind of community, yoga instructors, right? Anyone, I don't care. It's not my choice. But also, it's just, you can get a measuring tape, you can get a ruler, you can get a yardstick, whatever you want to say. You can just get a string out and pinch one end and the other end, and you can measure the angles of flexing and joints and the angles of rotation and joints, like the forearms or the lower legs or the entire leg and the entire arm, or even the spine, its ability to twist, torsion on the spine. You can just measure the degrees that are there, and, well, there's opposing sides and a neutral between them, if nothing else. Just, a vertical pole of gravity and a horizontal surface to the earth. It will never change. Okay, even opposing bends to the human being from the bottom to the top, it'll never change. It's not my opinion. It's never started. So it's pointless to try to train the human being. You can gain muscle mass, hypertrophy, musculature's size, but it just goes away when you stop trying to gain it. Back to the human body's only normal. It's always been the exact same. Truth is always valid. Okay, so there you go. Yeah, you got a problem with it, cool, that's your fault, because I don't even have anything I'm explaining here that I tried to make something of. These are things that have been the same since every human to ever live, so when we discuss where clothing sits under In the Image Clothing Company, and when I say you don't even have to even care about clothing, I mean, go a step farther than just not caring. You don't even care to try to care at all. Sure, don't. But you're just placing something onto your body that otherwise wouldn't be there. If we never placed anything on the body, it would just work. It would have to, because there's gravity. Okay. I mean, there's no opinion to this stuff at all. I've been doing this for 16 months. Uh, I mean, I've got such deep, thorough explanations on these things under what I call, for this reason, right, the gift of video. It's permanently documented and explained so thoroughly that you just don't know what you don't know, as is the same with me and anyone, right? We can't be held accountable for what we don't know, but once you know something, that's where that phrase really does come in, because it truly is just as obvious as it is. I mean, because it's only what it is, and if you don't see it, that's one thing, but once you realize, like, oh man, I've been putting heels under my shoes, under my feet, just, changing the mathematical angle of the neutral to lifting my toes up or pointing my toes down, and yeah, right, stuff like this, or your pant waistlines, just pulling your hips lower in the front. There's a neutral from being either lower in the front or higher in the front. Okay, anterior with the rotation or posterior with the rotation of the pelvis. So anyway, yeah, remove tongue tabs and shoes if they're there. Remove tags and clothing if they're there. Clothing needs to be made in all the ways we can have it be from 100% natural materials, because that's all that ever actually existed and all that will exist after we stop unnaturally manufacturing things, if that happens, is what I mean, right? Anyway, we filmed a lot of videos. Here's some of them under the main site of In The Image Clothing Company. It's just been a little while since we filmed an episode of In The Image Clothing Company podcast. I'll just go through some of these at least, just so around this time, and I say the dates in most everything we film under the gift of video, but just for congruency, context, like I say, it's our insurance policy, and, just discussing things as we're doing it. There's no dispute. My body looks different, and then, anyway, the seasons and the weather look different. We film things outside, just to show we've been saying the same things since we can show you that we did, because we documented it under the gift of video. So here's some video titles in the past little while here. Unnatural doesn't exist. This is what we do. Heels on shoes damage the body. Gravity affects our clothing. Turning from the feet. This is not bad posture. There's a lot happening in the feet. Standing vertical. It took me 2 years, which, yeah, at this point, and that video was 7 days ago from today's date. I think it was the 5th of February 2026. What I said in that video, it's an hour, 12 minutes, 50 seconds. I'm looking at it here on a computer on my left side here, by the way, for those of you in audio only, of In The Image Clothing Company podcast, episode 204. Okay, this one here, Where Clothing Sits, is its title. By the way, I discussed where clothing sits. Now, for the rest of this, we'll just discuss whatever else we do in here for the sake of what I'm saying, date marking it and congruency and insurance policy type stuff. Okay. 2 years as of right around this time. Yeah. I'm just about completely out of patterning in my physical body. There's no opinion to it. I can show the rotations in my legs and my shoulders and my, my lower legs and my forearms, just my whole body, the functioning of it. Okay, I've got what you would call, if you would call it this, good posture and full ranges to all the motion in my body. Because there truly is only one way the human body could ever work, and it's documented under the gift of video. So there you go. It's taken me 2 years, though, of a lot of work to get out of chronic patterning in my body, but I can say that I'm just about there at this point, and it's just, again, proof. Well, depending on what you call proof, but, under video, I show how my body moves. There's no opinion to it if you want to find out the truth, okay? In the Image Clothing Company from the founder, another video on the main site of In the Image Clothing Company, physics, mathematics, and mechanics, the physicality of it, tying shoes evenly, if we never wore clothing, the top of the feet, the top of the right fibula. That's an hour, 35-minute, 40-second long video discussing the top of the right fibula. We live in a right-handed world, 85% give or take of human beings being right-handed. That's the patterning that we really get into, off to the right side. More externally rotated on the right side, and that just causes us to drop lower and be farther away from our bodies on the right side. A lot of it's just the collarbone or clavicle, and just the angle that it pivots in, either up or in. No, well, yes, but either up and in or down and out. That's just how the collarbone works. Okay, like internal rotation from the shoulder to the foot, a video on the main side of In The Image Clothing Company. It's because of the collarbone, okay? The collarbone has to come up and in to internally rotate from the shoulder to the fingertips, but also that travels down to, through the spine, the hips, and then all the way to the foot as well. The hips and the feet are exactly the same thing. When locked out at the knee, like the shoulder and the hand is exactly the same thing when locked out at the elbow. So oversized clothing is not a choice. A video under the main side of In The Image Clothing Company 10 days ago from today's date, okay? The 12th of February 2026 is today's date. Rotated seams and feet arches. Top seams affect the feet. Everybody who has one, everyone who has a body. I took a little snippet that, I discussed that from one of these videos, which was actually titled Rotated Seams and the Core. That's the longer video that I took that snippet from. Shadow boxing a thistle. Well, it's just kind of a funny, silly thing, but you can see my body moving well, right? I was doing kicks to this like dead thistle plant while the airplane noise was going overhead, really was what I was doing, waiting out the airplane noise. The core can never deactivate. Bones can't go anywhere. Scar tissue around the larynx, which, yeah, I took a snippet from that. Why you clear your throat? Well, there's scar tissue around your larynx. Really, it's just the cartilage covering the larynx or the voice box, right? The Adam's apple, but oversized clothing, pulling on your body. Imbalances in clothing, pulling on your body. Dreaded collar seams, imbalancing the circumference of your collar, okay, around your neck. Opening up the body. Another video under the main side of In The Image Clothing Company. It says 2 weeks ago from today's date, the 12th of February 2026. Taking all the opinions away. The human body is ironic because really internal rotation closer to the body's center line is how we really open up as big as we could. Just to open the joint capsule of the shoulder or the hip, okay? It's just how it works. Muscles only contract, okay? The human body only pulls. Again, that's that video that we reference often under the main side of In The Image Clothing Company. It's the truth. The body only pulls, but there are opposing muscles, okay? So even when we push, we're still pulling, technically, to extend a hinge. It's not a push. It couldn't possibly happen with the way that muscles fire. The fibers, they get closer together, okay, as I said earlier, but I just want to reiterate, there you go, that, because that's a huge point. The human body can only ever pull together, okay? That's the truth. That's the truth. It'll never change. A video here under the main side of In The Image Clothing Company, here meaning where I'm reading from. Well, shoot, another video, this snippet from You Can't Be Ambidextrous in Imbalanced Clothing, okay, because that was a big video. Short sleeves can cause neck pain. They can. Short sleeves and the sternocleidomastoid. The multi-trick pony, I just discussed how we do a lot under In The Image Clothing Company, okay? Because you're right-handed, that was a big video. A lot of things that just happen because we're right-handed that I know about you if you are right-handed, even without having ever met you, because that's just how it works, just one side of the body, and there's a center to Earth's gravity. I don't get to decide. Another video here on the main side of In The Image Clothing Company, right, where I'm reading these from. Full range of motion. We can learn truth if we want. External rotation is forward. Internal rotation is backward. A lot of what I discussed in there is just we have different lengths of fingers versus the length of our thumbs. Okay, and then as we rotate those, we're rotating the bones in our forearms, the radius and ulna, to flip the hand over, and so that travels up to the shoulder as well. Okay, and then this was a similar thing. Internal rotation is pulling, external rotation is pushing. It essentially, in ways and just about only, but seen with context. I give a lot of it in that video there, and we will where we do. Going forth under In The Image Clothing Company, if we do is the point, okay? You can't fake functionality. That's a big point, and I showed my body working, okay? You might be making it up is a clip I took from that, because you might think I'm just making it up, that it's clothing that allows the body to work, but I can't fake functionality, and we discuss things so thoroughly there's no possible dispute. It's not our choices, okay? What breathing really is. A video here that was placed under the main site of In The Image Clothing Company, filmed by me. By the way, all these are filmed by me, Evan Strong, the founder of In The Image Clothing Company, and Dante, my standard poodle here. He was in most every one of these, if not every one of these. I'm pretty sure every one of these ones that I'm reading in the past few weeks here. But heels on shoes cause yawning. Okay, you don't have to care. Well, what yawning really is the big video I took that snippet from, right? Heels on shoes do cause yawning. You're trying to yawn your heels back onto the ground. You just change the natural position of your jaw. If you lift your heels off the ground, it just changes the entire body, traveling up to the tip of the head and the tips of the fingers. The shoulder's neutral is behind the head. The sternocleidomastoid is in the front. The upper trapezius is in the rear. It's not real. Yeah, a snippet from sensory activation in the body, which was the big video. When I say big video, most of these are around an hour and a half in length. The ones that I'm saying are big videos, give or take. Some of them are 2 hours, some of them are around an hour. We have long videos because I'm just giving a lot of context. We're still, in a way, at the founding of In The Image Clothing Company. 16 months, a little over 16 months into it, okay, as of today's date, the 12th of February, 2026. It's impossible to train posture, a snippet, but just truth, right? Again, I discussed it in this episode of In The Image Clothing Company Podcast, 204, titled Where Clothing Sits. It's just even opposing mathematical bends of the body traveling up from the horizontal surface of Earth, okay? Picture a soldier. Focus on the solution. Centered is the resting state. Lifting the right side of the body, it's permanent. No opinion possible. Bone spurs in the body. Reshaping bones. I referenced that in this episode of In The Image Clothing Company Podcast 204, titled Where Clothing Sits. The neutral ankles and the neutral wrists. I discussed that a little bit in this episode as well of In The Image Clothing Company Podcast. They do the same things. If the neutral ankle is altered, the neutral wrist will be altered as well, and vice versa. The wrists can alter the ankles as well, even though the wrists are higher off of Earth's gravity than the ankles, The head can affect the feet, just like the hands can affect the feet, okay? Picture Legos. Another video here under the main site of In The Image Clothing Company that I'm reading, just the video log here where I have our videos placed under In The Image Clothing Company's main side. The natural head position. That's a relatively big video, an hour, 7 minutes. The jaw is the shoulder. Okay, an hour-long video. Well, 101.09 is how long it was. Okay, an hour and 1 minute, 9 seconds. Dante goes for a jaunt. That's just a snippet that was fun. Dante and I just ran away from the camera and then back. Okay, left-handed knots versus right-handed knots. That's big. The pinky toes and the pinky fingers. That's big. Okay, they're both the neutrals, as we've discussed in this episode of In The Image Clothing Company Podcast. 204. We're on episode 204, brother. Where Clothing Sits is the title. The left arm versus the right arm. Reaching down with the left arm, because we're in a right-handed world. Reaching down with the left arm opposes a right-handed patterning. The natural curve in the spine. I referenced that video here in this episode of In The Image Clothing Company Podcast 204, Where Clothing Sits. Okay. Keeping air out of the digestive system. Yeah, for dogs and human beings, any animals that would apply to. Okay, that was an hour, 2 minute, 4 second long video, pretty big video, meaning full of a lot of information. The open palm and internal rotation. The natural bend in the knee. There you go, the one that really goes right along with the natural curve in the spine. And then I think from there, or just about there, we had an episode of In The Image Clothing Company Podcast, which I discussed, what was going on at that time, because that's around a month ago from today's date, the 12th of February, 2026. But the epidermis, the right foot and the hip, the same since the founding, the body works by stabilizing. Shout out to car brands. It's just a silly title because I was giving a lot of information there, but cars kept going by, so I just, was kind of talking about the cars as I was discussing the anatomy of the human body. But anyway, yeah, there's a lot of videos there as of right now. Like I said, today's date, the 12th of February, 2026, here on In The Image Clothing Company's main side where I'm reading these video titles from. This is public, right? I'm just on this, not signed into anything. Anyone can get to this who has access to the internet as of today's date, okay? Yeah, the 12th of February, 2026. There's 449 videos on where I have In the Image Clothing Company's main side videos placed as of today's date, okay, publicly under the internet, okay, the internet. So anyway, just meaning that's the point. We do things public, we post things. I usually post our videos the very day that I film them. That's the goal. That's what I've done with almost every one of them for the past 16 months plus, okay, as the founder of In the Image Clothing Company, me, Evan Strong. It's still only been me as of today's date, which is cool. You know, that's what it means to be the founder of something, is you've got to start it. But we'll move down to St. George, Utah within just a couple months. Okay, very, very, very soon. Dante and I, my purebred standard poodle, although let's, not call him purebred because Dante's the rescue. I'm pretty certain he's purebred, but unless we actually do a genetic test, which we might, we won't know for sure. But Dante, right? He's awesome. And him and I will move down to St. George, Utah. We're in Utah County still, okay, about 3.5 hours north from St. George, Utah. And continue doing what we do. As I've said, as we've talked about, it's just what's going to happen. I'm not trying to have hopes or dreams or make some kind of like prophecy or big statement. I'm just giving context because we'll have our building, In the Image Clothing Company's building down there. We can breed our poodles in there, house our poodles in there, ship our products out from there, dog products and human being clothing, letting the dog stay natural, allowing the body to work. Our team members will be there. It'll be a central hub for us to film videos out of, and it'll be cool to see if you want to see it and think it's cool personally. We will not be having a building where you come in to purchase clothing. We just aren't approaching it that way with the internet nowadays, with the ability to sell things in ways we couldn't have in the past. We'll just ship our products out. A lot of that is because we'll just have such a tight-knit family of our community, very clearly worded, as I've said many times, a company, not a business, as in the Image Clothing Company. The word company is in our company name, okay? It is 5 words all together with no spaces. In the Image Clothing Company, found wherever you can possibly find that, okay? In modern day, you look something up and you can find it, right? You can find In the Image Clothing Company. We're public. That's the point, is just to, do what we do. So there you go. Meaning there's a lot that we do. Check it out if you'd like, because we just give so much context. As I've done here, there's good explanation. If this is the first time you've seen or heard anything from In the Image Clothing Company, besides maybe how you got to here, if you got to here by trying to find out where we discuss, where clothing sits, yeah, that's the point, right? That's why I filmed this episode, titled this, but then also just the context of the videos we filmed since, a couple months ago from today's date, the 12th of February, 2026. We're getting really close to Dante and I moving down to St. George, Utah. It's not some kind of big dream, like I'm saying. It's just where we need to be for what we do. It's relatively warm year-round. It's hot in the summers, with it being a true desert, okay? Red rock, sandstone, it's beautiful. We'll just keep doing things as we do. So much in nature, things for the environment, so much under the gift of video, in-person events where we do. Just check scheduling, InTheImageClothingCompany.com, which here's some context as well. As of today's date, there's still no such thing as a developed website of InTheImageClothingCompany.com. But, that's where it will be. That's what it will be. Our 5-word company name is just how you will always find all 4 sides of In the Image Clothing Company. And there you go. Okay, thank you. And I think that's just about it that we need to say. Just as I've said, right? I mean, expect big things from us without holding us to some kind of high expectation, but just meaning I've got big expectations without having unrealistic expectations. I just know what this is. I know what we're doing here. I know that it's permanent and always valid, because it's not our choices, It's not something I could even be egoic or prideful about, because I couldn't possibly take credit for it. I didn't design the human being. And all we really do is just design clothing to work for the design of the human being. I couldn't take credit for that. Anyone could do that, right? Good boy, Dante. You good dog. You're such a good dog. You wouldn't even know he's here, other than his little, nose blowing like that he does, or scratching himself if you can hear him kicking. You're just so gentle and quiet and nice. Sweet and awesome. You're great, buddy. So we do a lot. We do what we do. There's so much context on what we do. I just wanted this to be a very straight to the point. Like, you click on this video or audio only, right? Available in two forms, but episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast 204, where clothing sits, and then right away I just started discussing where clothing sits because, it'll never change ever. Just having to place things onto the body where the bones of the body meet to have the motion happen, it'll always be the exact same as how I've discussed in this video. Again, audio only as well, if that's how you're here. That's not my choice. Okay. So there you go. Round shoelaces. Man, I mean, I could just sit here and give all sorts of context, but I just don't want to be holding things back. And I've said that since the very start, since the very founding of In the Image Clothing Company. I've phrased it like this: giving all my secrets away. Where it's not like we're ever trying to have to pay for anything from us to get information from us. You don't have to purchase In the Image Clothing Company clothing. If you're going to be willing to modify clothing you design, you design maybe, right? Or other people design that you wear just to sit on the body, the only way the body mechanically operates, there's no opinion to it. So, yeah, it just is what it is. So there you go. Okay, where clothing sits. It'll change your life. I'll say this as well, as I've said, you can watch me, Evan Strong, under the gift of video. You can watch my body transform. It's not some claim, and that's why I say it like that. Like, I don't want it to sound like a big thing. It's just truly, you can, right? Getting out of the patterning I was in, ridding the chronic scar tissue and the bone spurs where my bones were being pulled on by the tendons because they weren't allowed to track in line, just working around clothing that didn't fit on my body where my body works. Wearing oversized clothing for years, imbalances of all sorts in clothing, stretch in clothing, heels on shoes, ropes uneven on my body. I was doing just about all the same things we discussed not doing under In the Image Clothing Company, and I'm the founder. Okay, that's how I know what I'm talking about, is out of personal experience. But it's nothing to do with me, except that there is a universal human design. So if it applies to me, it applies to you. If it's things like the shape of bones of the human being, okay, and dealing with gravity, which is a huge thing we do. We discuss breathing a lot, the jaw a lot, the feet a lot, gravity a lot, okay? A lot of these things. Eating is huge as well, Certain things like this that play into the rest of our lives that we might not really even be thinking about, But they're just happening regardless. That's what I mean. Truth is truth, even if you don't know it's true. It's still there. It's still happening if it's happening, even if it doesn't come to your mind, ever in your life. There's so much going on in life. It's just going on, even if you don't know about it. So anyway, not our choices, not our opinions. That's where clothing sits. It'll never change. I'm never going to try to revise it. Like, man, I was saying this at a time, but I just wasn't quite right about it. No. I mean, there's certain very, very, very specific things that I was saying at the very, 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 hear me correct with that, because we're only 16 months, give or take, into the founding of In the Image Clothing Company as of today's date. But I mean weeks or just a very few months into In the Image Clothing Company. Certain things I wasn't saying quite exactly accurate. No, that's understandable. I was still learning about what I was doing. I mean, we're always just learning about what we're doing the whole time we're human beings in this life, okay? There's just so much to know. We never will know it all by any means. Not even scratch the surface of what life really is by the time we die, even if that was your entire goal, is just to try to learn everything, okay? But what I'm saying is, yeah, the baseline of what I was discussing, me, Evan Strong, as the founder of In the Image Clothing Company, when it came to clothing and the human body and just the fact that clothing is the only thing physically placed onto the human body. It's the only thing physically placed onto the human body. That's what it means to clothe the body with something, okay, is to place something onto it. Yeah, something as I wasn't saying exactly correct with my explanations, but still the basis of what I was saying was the same at the very, very start as it still is, I just didn't understand things as well as I do now, and that's good because ideally that's the case going forth as well. Is that my understandings deepen from where they are now, even though I really know it deeply, the human body and how to allow it to work. And you can't dispute it if you want to know the truth of it. We've got the context, okay? Yeah, over 1,000 videos guaranteed on all 4 sides of In The Image Clothing Company combined, and they're intentional. We're not making things just to make things. That's a waste of my time as the one that's making them, if I am, right? No, I don't like to do that, so yeah. It's just not worth it is the point, you know? Yeah, we truly are set up for success. Okay, set up for success is an episode title of In The Image Clothing Company podcast. I am in this for life as the leader and, yes, the founder of In The Image Clothing Company, me, Evan Strong. You know, we've laid the foundation. Okay, episode 100 of In The Image Clothing Company podcast. Yep, it was titled Laying a Foundation. It's just, you know, it's good. We're here. We're set in stone. It is what it is, and that's why we do this. That's why I sit down as the founder of In The Image Clothing Company and I just speak and give context. Good boy, Dante. Because, yeah, I mean, there's no claim that we're trying to make. It wouldn't do us or anyone else any good. It would only be damaging to me and other people because I'd get found out. Like, trying to say something is something it isn't, and someone's going to find out about it after a while. It's like, oh, well, it lasted what it lasted. No, it's just, we do all we can to just only discuss truth. And if we're not right, then we try to get to truth closer than we did the first time. We weren't quite right. I mean, there's only truth, you know, ever. So, there you go, you know. You can have all the problems you want with what we say. It only is what it is. But, you know, the core will deactivate if we don't introduce food to the body properly. Food is just fuel for the body. The core will deactivate if we can't breathe naturally. You know, breath is the essence of human life, and breath is a physical thing. It's a positioning. It's expansion and contraction of, bones bending. The rib cage, you know, literally moves. Those are bones, I said it earlier in this, but yeah, that actually physically bend in the body. Yeah, that's not common to have happen. You know, well, because I say it as I do, bones are immovable by themselves, except, you know, certain bones like the ribs, they can bend, but yeah, right. It is what it is. It's just, it only is what it is the point. I don't get to decide it. So I don't care what you think you know and what you've been doing for as long as you have. If it's not true, it's not true, and it's not my choice. Okay, so anyway, there you go. You know, we'll keep shouting out good brands doing good things where we do, like Zero Shoes. They just do good things with shoes. We don't have any affiliation with them and haven't yet, as in the Image Clothing Company. Maybe one day we will, but I just like to talk about them because they've done so much for my body, you know. Here's the Ridgeway model boots by the brand Zero Shoes, right? They're great. I've been wearing these in a lot of the recent In The Image Clothing Company videos, you know, from today's date back, the 12th of February, 2026. And so, you know, stuff like this, I've just mentioned certain brands and certain things, and that's just what we'll continue to do. But it just is what it is, man. We're here to build a community, you know. We're here to do this. This is an episode of In The Image Clothing Company podcast that as I've said, you know, grandkids, great-great-grandkids, and their children and whoever else can listen back to. I'm not here for only my lifetime. I'm here to document things permanently under video like this, and everyone ever who could possibly access just any documentation of truth in any sense of what that could even mean benefits from it, you know. As do we when we read from the scriptures, you know, the Holy Bible, the Book of Mormon, the Doctrine and Covenants, the Pearl of Great Price, and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I mean, don't be surprised. We're founded on the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and specifically the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I think I just said that. What I mean is the gospel of Jesus Christ, but specifically in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I mean, it's in our company name. That's why we are In The Image Clothing Company. We're designed in the image of God. It's a universal human design, you know, so Anyway, I mean, the reason we have these documented records of scripture is because somebody documented things. The reason anyone going forth, even if it's thousands of years down the line potentially, or however long, can have access to what we've discussed under In the Image Clothing Company, that does apply to them, because things will never change that never change. There you go. Truth is truth. That's saying the same thing, right? Things that never change, never change. Right? Things that never change, never change. Well, you know what? Truth is truth. Well, you know what? Dogs are dogs. You know, Evan Strong is Evan Strong. It's just, yeah, things are only what they are. That's how you can say anything about anything. Because it's there. It exists, or it doesn't, you know. Yeah, you know, we've documented these things, and here you go. That's the point. Okay, so where clothing sits, it'll never change. It didn't start with me, because I founded a company called In the Image Clothing Company. Okay, I don't get to decide, because I'm one of the people that clothing sits only the way it does on, you know, as well. So, anyway. Yep. Don't try to argue with us, you know, don't try to argue with my team, please. You're wasting your time and you're causing unnecessary problems. Don't believe us. That's why I say it so clear. If you don't believe it, don't believe it. If it's true, though, it's true. We can't claim something being true and have it matter if it's not true. Yikes. That's the point, is we don't get to decide truth. No, something's always been how it is if it's always going to be how it is. It's just, it is what it is, like mathematics. We don't get to decide math. We get to understand math. We don't get to decide science. We understand science. It's always been there. It's truth, and we get to uncover it or learn about it, deepen our relationship with Him, Jesus Christ, who is the truth. Okay, so the designer of the body, okay, in the image of Jesus Christ, designed by Jesus Christ, we've got this thing that only does what it does, and if it doesn't, you're going to the doctor to try to get it to do what it does. And that doctor doesn't have to be a heart doctor, lung doctor, you know, something like this, but the physical therapist is a doctor. The chiropractor is a doctor. For your physical body's physical functioning, its mechanics that are determined by what's physically placed onto it. Or you just never place anything physically onto it to clothe it with something, and it's probably going to just work. Within your own individualistic situations, yeah, it's supposed to. That's why you have it, is to take you across the earth with, right? The only thing that we have, an episode title of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, it's our human bodies. Everything else comes and goes, but from what? From you, essentially. Your human body, you know. In this physical life, this human body is what determines our physical life. It's a physical body. We physically design products, okay, physical clothing items that we place onto our bodies. The human body is physically placed onto earth. God designed the earth and the human body. We don't get to decide. Okay. Our human being designed clothing items have to work for the God designed human being that we place them onto. Same with the dogs, or, you know, horses, pack mules. When it comes to letting dogs stay natural under In the Image Clothing Company poodles, the same thing is happening for any animal you place something onto that's man-made. Nothing's man-made until it is. Mankind was made by God, so mankind can make things. You know, things only happen how they do. There's only truth. You can't possibly dispute it without being truly, literally, no name-calling, but the definition of delusional. It only is what it is. Everything, always, only, and ever. And it's no human being's decision, because we didn't design these things. Okay. So thank you. Where clothing sits, that's the basis, that's the essence, that's the root of the main side of In the Image Clothing Company. Those last two of our 5-word company name, Clothing Company, right? That's what we are. We are, and we will always have great clothing once we start having it available. But, you know, it's not really about clothing, because it would never possibly be able to be unless we had something to clothe the body with. It's about the human body's functionality and allowing the body to work, okay? So, thank you.